Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we got the full review here. Now, I am going to jump around a little bit because I have a lot to talk about. Now, later on in the video, we're going to talk about adjusting the detent because I did do that. Also, this steel, DC53, a new steel that this is the first time I've gotten to test it. So we're going to talk about this steel and what I think about it later on in the video. First off, let's talk about the materials. We have DC53 steel that is PVD coated, and then we have G10 shadow boxed over the steel liners, which are also PVD coated, and we have a titanium milled pocket clip. The ergos, very nice in the hand. I'm very comfortable here in this position. If you look at the spine of it, you'll see it has a flat spot here, and then it almost has like two flat spots here, like one here and then one here, but it kind of just rounds out, which winds up rounding with the inside of your palm very, very nicely. We have a crowned spine on the blade, which makes for really comfortable, a real comfortable spot for your thumb. You don't have any jimping, tying you up or anything like that. Some people might look at this and think this is kind of pokey, but to me, it's not. I am perfectly fine like this. It feels nice and comfortable like this. My pinky lands in a good spot to really push it up into my palm. So I'm very happy with it. Ergos wise, very, very nicely. Now, cutting performance with this blade. So at first, I wasn't happy with the edge. So the edge bevel was kind of high. It was a high angle. So I did want to resharpen it, reprofile it, and everything else. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But after sharpening it, this thing cuts really, really good. I mean, it blazes through stuff. I cut even doubling up cardboard, two pieces, side by side, blazes right through it. Now, you're going to get a little bit of resistance from the fuller. This is a nice deep fuller, but that's just the nature of any fuller. You're going to get a little resistance. But all in all, this thing cuts really, really good. It's about 20 thousandths behind the edge, but it does have a nice, tall, flat grind. It's not a mega slicer. It's not very thin behind the edge, but it's also not like heavily robust. It's good geometry considering. So it's going to be kind of in that medium category of geometry. Now, the tip of it is a robust tip, but yet acute enough to do good utility cuts. And it winds up landing in a place where you get a lot of leverage through the cut, because if it's up really high before you can get to the tip, well, you lose all the leverage pulling back into the cut. But when you don't have to go up high and your arm and your wrist and your hand can go straight with the knife, you get a lot of leverage, with the muscles from your arm pulling back into a cut, and it works great. Like I said, the tip is acute enough, but yet robust enough to where you're not going to have to worry about it, but acute enough to where it's going to do really good utility cuts. Let's talk about the action. The action is really nice. Really, really nice now, because it did come with a very weak detent. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit when I show how I tune the detent. But the flipping action, the flipper tab does have jimping on it. You can do the light switch or the push button. Now, the detent, when it came, I could easily flip it, but it was weak. It was light. I could also easily fail it. So as easy as I could flip it out, I could also fail it. So I wanted to strengthen it a little bit, but now that it is tuned, man, really good action. The lock bar access is really easy to get to, and you see they even cut it out on this side, which is nice. So it's just so easy to get to. The detent is a little late, but because you have so much room right here on the lock bar, you can easily get past it. Fall shut action 100%. Now, this fuller is very deep. Look how deep that fuller is. This is one of the deepest fullers I've felt. Possibly the best one I've ever felt is on the Tucson TS 195, but this one is really close. It's nice and not sharp in a bad way, but sharp in a good way where you can easily get your nail behind it. You can use your skin. I mean, I can even ring finger this thing. It's so easy to reverse flick this knife. Very, very nice. I love that they put the fuller very deep. Now you can also use the thumb. Not as easy as the reverse flick, but you still can. So the action on this thing is amazing, especially after tuning it. It is still nice and centered, as you can see. You can't touch the tip. The coating on it has held up really good. This PVD coating, I've been actually surprised how good. Now, I haven't hard used it, so let's just be clear about that. I should have maybe hard used it a little bit more to really test this coating, but through cardboard, plastic straps, I did do a little bit of food prep, but that won't mess up the coating. But basically, that's all I did though, was the straps and the cardboard that would have ever affected the coating. So, but normally I get a lot of streaks and lines, and this one ain't too bad. I did clean it right before filming though. Now, let's talk about the clip and carry. Clip and carry, man, good. No problem. I mean, it's not the best, but there's no issue here. It works in and out of the pocket. It's got 2 screws, so the clip won't shift back and forth. Nice and solid. Nice solid tension too. It might be a little too much tension because, you know, getting in and out of the pocket, it is pretty tight. But hey, a lot of people like that, and this is a very affordable knife. So I mean, it's good. It's good. No issues there. Now, let's talk about this steel. So, what I've read about it is that it's basically like a harder version of D2. So, it's kind of like D2, just harder. Now, I'll put up some pictures on the screen for you guys to read some of the things I read about it. But, so going into it, sharpening it, I didn't know what to expect because it was my first time. But I did want to sharpen it rather quickly after getting it because I wasn't happy with the factory edge. Now, when I started sharpening it though, normal D2 does best or between like 600 and 1200 grit. I normally don't like to take it higher than 1200 grit because it tends to start losing its bite on its edge. Some D2 does do well though. It just depends on the company, the heat treat, etc. But for the big grand scheme of things, D2 normally does best. But I normally don't even try to take it over 600 grit. I have a couple with polished edges, but for the most part, 600 grit does great on D2. Like it just loves a 600 grit edge. However, this stuff I wanted to see how it would do. Would it be similar to D2 where it falls off after 1200 grit, or would it hold a very nice polished edge? Well, let me tell you, this thing got screaming sharp with a polished edge. I mean, even after use, I mean, I've used it and it's still, you see how it's just biting into my finger. This thing took a ridiculously sharp polished edge. I was very surprised how sharp of a polished edge this thing took. So, you know, I guess that makes sense, you know, because if it is a harder version of D2, you know, maybe that would be the result, right? So it did feel good on the stone. It didn't really, I mean, I guess it kind of felt like D2. You know, some people have a problem sharpening D2. They think it's a little tough. I say as long as you start with a very coarse stone and do all your profiling off your first various courses you can get stone, you won't have any issues. And this sharpened up really good. It did reprofile good. And as I moved my way up the stones, it just got stupid sharp after I polished it. Now, with the toothy finish, it was good too. So I would say this type of steel, from my experience so far, it can do good between like 500 grit, 500 grit, all the way up to whatever grit. You know, 5,000 is what I stopped at. So, and now, stropping and honing it back, it has stropped back pretty good. And it has held its bite really good. Now, I did notice I did get a little bit of microchipping here at the tip. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. Right here in the tip. Just a little bit of microchipping. Not that big of a deal. Very small. I could probably hone it out with a ceramic stone. But For the most part, it's been very good. It strops back pretty good. You know, not as easy as a lot of steels, but I will say though, it held its bite very well. Meaning after I got it off the stone and I'm using it, some steels, they'll take a good bite on the edge. So the edge will be polished and it'll feel very sharp, but then once you start using it, the bite just goes away and it gets slick. This did not do that. It did hold its bite very well. Even after use, it still had a lot of bite. So I would imagine that with a polished edge, you would be able to continue cutting with a polished edge for quite some time. And you can always strop and hone it back. Now, getting into some of the issues with sharpening is that, see back there? Oh man, that looks ugly, doesn't it? Look at that smile. And that's what I talk about when I say, and then look, you can see I couldn't even hit back here because the plunge grind is so close to the edge. So the plunge grind starts right here and then it ends about right here. They didn't give you any separation from the plunge grind to where the edge starts. And this is why I talk about that. Now, this is only one that's sharpening in. This is one sharpening. Imagine 2, 3 sharpenings in. I mean, it's going to be horrifying. But I mean, it already is horrifying from one edge. So they should have put a better plunge grind here, a better sharpening choil. You can actually see the plunge grind, how, you know, you see the end of it basically like right here, and then it kind of, you can kind of see it like as in a shadow, kind of goes like this. So they needed to go past here. Now, one of the other issues why they definitely should have done that is the edge is sticking out back here. That makes no sense. Why wouldn't they just put a sharpening choil in it and move it up to here? Then it wouldn't be poking out here. Now I can absolutely cut myself right now because the edge is so sharp from my sharp edge. Now where you would have problems is if you skipped off the flipper tab. Now I haven't done that. It's been fine. I haven't cut myself on it or anything like that. But if you skipped off the flipper tab and you hit it, or if it's in your pocket and you go to put your hand in your pocket and you go like this, you know, trying to get something out of your pocket, you could possibly hit it. Now, functionally, you know, does this cause an issue? Not with cutting or anything like that. It doesn't cause an issue with that. What it does is it makes the knife look ugly. It's definitely very ugly. And then another thing is that when you're sharpening, it hits your stone. Now, if you look at this stone, you'll see a spot. This is an aluminum oxide stone where it was hit. Right here. You see the chip right here. So this is where it's been hit by a plunge. So that, you know, those sharpening stones are expensive. You don't want to chip the corners of them. Now you got to reflatten them. So it becomes a big issue with plunge grinds. Another thing, when you're on your stone, it lifts it up off the stone, so then your edge angle could be messed up, kind of like we have right here where it didn't hit right there because it's too worried about getting back here, and it lifts up the edge right there, so then it winds up going over that, and that winds up becoming harder to hit. Now, yes, I could have hit that, but I would have had to have removed all that steel right there. So think about how much higher up my edge would be in order to get that out. It just wasn't worth it. Now, in order to fix it, because they did put the stop pin in a good place, nice stop pin, good size stop pin, and it's well placed, very solid, you know, no complaints there. But if I want to cut in my own choil right now, I would take a bit and I would drill basically a circle right here, right? Now, if I do that, it's going to take the coating off from the circle. So when you look at it right here like this, this won't be black no more. This will be shiny. So is it that big of a deal? Maybe not. Maybe for most users, they're like, man, this is my work knife. It's going to get scratched up. It's going to get all messed up. I don't even care. I would just cut in a choil and say, screw it. Yeah, maybe. But some people might not want to damage the coating. It might stand out. So it just depends on you. I say they should have just did it from the factory, gave you a good plunge grind. It's not like you had to have a full finger choil or anything. Just separate the edge from the plunge grind. I hate that. I hate that. And I couldn't avoid that either. I tried to. I tried to do it where I would start my edge right here at the edge, but it's so thick back here, it's impossible. But so I just wish they would have did that. Now, they did put T8s all the way around. I do like to see that. Only T6s are on the clip. Clip is very solid. I like the brass thing right there. I wish they would have did it on this side. Let's talk about this lock bar. So, the detent was weak. I mean, when I would go to flick it, it would just go like that. Now, obviously, I got it well tuned now, so it's very easy to deploy without ever failing. But it was very weak from the factory. So, took it apart. It was easy to take apart. No issues taking apart. This has a D shape inside of it, so it does lock itself in there. Now, that wasn't the best. It did have a couple little issues on the inside of there, and it didn't fit perfectly. So you do want to be careful when putting it back in, but we'll get to that in a second. But when I took it apart, I took it all apart, and I got to the liner right here, the lock scale liner. And after I had it all apart, you know, you can see it's got ceramic caged bearings. You can see it's got caged bearings, and I took the liner and I started bending it. So what I did was I held on to it right here, right where this cutout is, really firm, and I bent it over. Now, with a liner like this, it is incredibly easy to do this. This is very, very easy to do, but you can also overbend it. So you just do a little bit. A little goes a very long way with a liner lock like this. With this kind of liner, it's super easy to do. So if you're gonna adjust a liner like this, be careful. Don't overdo it. Just do it a little bit, put it back together, and see how it worked. Because I'll tell you what, a little bit went a very long way with this guy. I only had to do it once. I never had to take it back apart. I did it just a little bit, and bang, the detent is extremely well tuned now. So very easy fix. So I'm not really too upset at that. Now, I mean, it's a massive improvement after I did it myself. Yes, I wish it would have came with a good detent from the factory. However, it was very easy. So if you guys want to tune your own detent, you can do it, but beware, if you mess it up, it's on you. It's your fault. Not mine, not the factory's, yours. So, but it's pretty easy, to be honest. And if you do wind up doing it too much, just take it back apart and back it up a little bit. And just remember, like, a little goes a long way. So, other than that, though, really, I mean, it's a very affordable knife. You could easily get this and never do anything to it. Just sharpen it up. It takes a nasty sharp edge. And just use it. You know, you don't have to worry about doing the things I did. You don't have to worry about even laying back the edge angle like I did. You could literally just hone it up, or, you know, just follow the same edge angle they had. Or, you know, just use it until it gets dull and then put a new edge on it. I thought the edge could have been a little sharper. And plus, I wanted to really test the steel out. So either way, I was going to sharpen it. Has a cool sound to it. I do kind of hear it on the drop a little bit because of the coating. But it is fall shut action, so it doesn't sacrifice the smoothness. Now, like I was saying, when I was putting it back together, the D-shaped pivot didn't have the best D-shaped cutout in there because it was like on the plastic. So when I put it back, or however it was, on the inside, it just wasn't fit the best. So when I was tightening this did try to spin on me a couple times and like pop out because it's just a little dent on the inside of the pivot. So it's not like an actual D-shaped pivot. So it did pop out a couple times, but it wasn't very difficult. I just popped it in, held it with my finger, put a little pressure on the blade, and then tightened it up on the T8 pivot. Wasn't that difficult. So, and then the action, like I said, wasn't sacrificed. It only helped it. Even the drop is completely fall shutty still. So, you know, perfect. Very, very happy with it now. And I like this knife quite a bit. I do. I like this knife quite a bit. Cuts very well. Good ergos. Carries good. Action is amazing. And it's just a good work knife, you know. It looks cool too. It's a very good looking knife. I love the way this thing looks. And now with this mirrored edge, oh man, it looks good. Yes, I wish it didn't have the smile there, but other than that, oh, it is a sexy looking knife. I'll say that. Good looking knife. Now here is one of their other knives that I'm testing as well. Same steel. They actually did a better sharpening or plunge grind on this one. You can see they put it way back here, so they did give me plenty of room to lay this one back. So this is one that is coming up very soon. It is a front flipper. It's also another really good looking knife. So the review is coming very soon on this one. So keep an eye out for that one. All right, guys. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.